caring for elders. Get set. The elders in our family always take good care of us and help us. Do you also help and care for your elders when they need you? Do you care for your elders' happiness more than you care for your own? Characters: Pankaj, a boy of about 10. Rajat, Satish, Pankaj's friends. A few other boys, Pankaj's friends. Pankaj's grandmother, Pankaj's mother. Scene 1. Back from school, Pankaj rings the bell. His grandmother opens the door. Pankaj rushes in. Pankaj:
Oh, Granny, great news! We have a cricket match next week against Modern School, and I am in the team.
Grandmother: That's truly wonderful. But you are a bit late today. Have your lunch quickly. And Pankaj:
Yes, Grandma.
Grandmother: Will you help yourself? I have fever. I want to sleep.
Oh, sure, Grandma. Please go to bed. If the bell rings, I'll answer it. Have you taken some medicine?
Grandmother: Yes, I have. Bless you, my dear. Scene 2. Pankaj is sitting in a chair reading a book. Suddenly, he hears the doorbell ringing. He opens the door and finds Rajat, Satish, and a few other boys outside. Pankaj:
Hello, boys.
Rajat:
Hello. Where's your ball? Take it and come to the cricket ground. We are off.
Pankaj:
Sorry, Rajat. I can't come today.
Rajat:
But you promised.
Pankaj:
I know, but I just can't come. Satish: What happened? Are you angry? Pankaj: No, it's just that... Satish: You can't let us down. We have a match with Modern School next week. You have to be fit. We must practice. Pankaj: Listen, Grandma has fever and there's nobody else at home. I must stay to answer the doorbell so that she can rest.
The boys become quiet. Rajat slowly:
Okay, in that case, you must stay at home.
They leave. Pankaj to himself, watching them run.
They'll have all the fun. Wish I were there, but Grandma needs me. How can I leave her alone?
Scene 3. Pankaj is sitting in his chair, reading, looking at his watch.
It's 4:30. Grandma's been sleeping for an hour. That should do her good. The boys must be playing. If only I were there. But I am glad I stayed back for Granny's sake.
Gets up and walks about.
Wish I could join my friends now.
The bell rings. Pankaj opening the door.
Oh, Mummy! How come you are home at 4:30? You always come at 6:30.
Mother: I have brought some work home, but why aren't you out for playing?
Grandma is not well, so I stayed back.
Mother giving him a hug. How thoughtful! But now you can go and join your friends. I'll look after Grandma. Pankaj grabs his ball, says, Thank you, Mummy, and runs out. Word meanings: wonderful, extremely good. Promised, said to someone that you would certainly do something. Practice, to do something regularly to improve your skill. Thoughtful, thinking of doing things to keep people happy. The young dragon. Get set. How do you feel when you fall ill? Whenever we are unwell, we cannot enjoy our favorite games or food. Read this poem about a dragon who falls ill and is unable to blow out fire.
What can I do?
The young dragon cried.
Although I've simply tried and tried. It doesn't matter how hard I blow. I cannot get my fire to go.
Open your mouth, his mother said. It's no wonder. Your throat's red. Your scales are cold. You must be ill. I think you must have caught a chill. The doctor came. He looked and said,
You'll need a day or two in bed. Your temperature's down, no doubt. That's the reason your fire has gone out. Just drink this petrol and chew these nails. They'll help you to warm up your scales. Just take it easy. Watch TV. You'll soon be as right as rain. You'll see.
The young dragon did as he was told, and soon his scales stopped feeling cold. He sneezed some sparks. His face glowed bright. He coughed and set the sheets alight.
Oh dear,
he cried,
I have burnt the bed.
It doesn't matter, his mother said. Those sheets were old. Go out and play. Just watch where you breathe fire today. Word meanings: wonder, a surprising thing. Scales, small flat pieces of hard material that cover the body of fish and some other animals. Chill, extreme cold. Right as rain, perfectly all right. Alight, on fire, burning. Strawberry surprise. Get set. Do you like eating ice cream? Do you know how ice cream is made? Ice cream can be made with a few simple ingredients at home as well. Let's read a story about a little girl, Prerna, who loves strawberry ice cream. Prerna was looking forward to her holidays with Granny in Darjeeling. During her last visit there, she had helped her plant strawberries. They'll be ready to eat when you come during your summer vacation, Granny had said. In the weeks that followed, Prerna always asked about the strawberries. Then one day she got a postcard that simply read, It's strawberry time. When she reached Granny's house, the first thing Prerna did was to run to the garden to look at the strawberry patch. Each plant was laden with heart-shaped fruits. But they're still green, she wailed. Not to worry, replied Granny. They'll be ready to eat in a few days, long before you go back to Kolkata. So every morning Prerna inspected the strawberries. One day, when she lifted the leaves carefully to look at them, they were red. Granny, Granny, she shouted. The strawberries are red and ready. Do we pluck them now? May I have them for breakfast? I'm sorry, but no, said Granny. Why? Asked Prerna. We'll pluck them, but we have to meet Sita first, replied Granny. Who's Sita? And why must we meet her? What's she got to do with our strawberries? Patience, patience, said Granny. You'll find out soon enough when we go to Ghoom. So both of them drove off to Ghoom. Granny drove to a village on the hillside and stopped at a large wooden house. At the gate, a young lady was waiting, surrounded by dogs, but no children. Hello, she said. You must be Prerna. Your grandmother told me you were coming to meet Sita. The lady laughed. In the house? Of course not. She's in the field, basking in the sunshine. Come along. I'll take you to meet her. The three of them went to the fields behind the house where a herd of cows was grazing. Sita, oh Sita, the lady called, and a beautiful white cow with black patches came up to them. So that's Sita, laughed Prerna. All the while I thought she'd be a girl, just like me. Granny, you never told me. I wanted to surprise you, replied Granny. Isn't she beautiful? Yes, said Prerna. I've never seen a cow this close. May I pat her? Of course you can, she smiled. Sita is very friendly. She is my favorite cow. Say hello to her. "Hello, Sita," said Prerna. Sita bent her head and Prerna hesitantly put out her hand and patted her smooth, satiny head. "Your granny wanted fresh milk, and Sita's milk is the sweetest, creamiest milk all over Darjeeling. Come on, let's get some." The milk lady took a pail and squatted on her heels beside Sita. She started milking the cow, talking softly all the time. The milk squirted into the pail with a soft, squishy sound. Prerna watched, fascinated. Sita was quite unlike the thin, scrawny cows that she had seen on the streets of Kolkata. She was clean and healthy, and never once tried to butt them with her head. When the pail was full, the milk lady took an apple and gave it to Prerna. "That's her treat," she said. "You can give it to her. Go on," she said. "She won't bite." Gingerly, Prerna held out the apple and Sita put out her tongue and swept the apple into her mouth. "That tickles," she giggled. "I like that." The milk lady poured the milk into a can and gave it to Granny. They wished her goodbye and set off for home. "So we went to meet Sita for milk," said Prerna. "But what about strawberries?" "We're going to have a strawberry ice cream party," said Granny. "That's why we needed the milk. And Prerna, all your friends have been invited." "Yippee! What a lovely treat," said Prerna. "Granny, you always think of fun things to do." "I always enjoyed churning the milk when my mother made ice cream," said Granny. "Perhaps you will too." That evening, after Prerna and her friends had plucked the strawberries, Granny got out an old wooden ice cream maker with a handle. Inside this, she placed a container with cream, sugar, and milk. Then she packed layers of salt and ice around it. Now came the fun bit. Everyone took turns to churn the mixture by turning the handle round and round. Just before the ice cream was done, Granny chucked a bowl full of strawberries into the container. A final round of turning the handle and the ice cream was ready. Granny carefully lifted the container out and set it on the table. "Come and get it," she called, and the hungry ice cream makers needed no second reminders. They filled their plates with the softest, creamiest ice cream they had ever seen. Then they topped it with fresh strawberries. For some heavenly moments, the only sound Granny could hear was the clinking of spoons and the smacking of lips as the children ate the ice cream. "This is the yummiest ice cream we've ever had," said the kids. "Thanks to Granny." "And thanks to Sita," said Prerna, smiling. Word meanings. Strawberry patch, a group of strawberry plants. Laden, heavily loaded or weighed down. Inspected, looked at, someone or something closely. Pluck, quickly or suddenly removed something. Basking, lying exposed to warmth and light, typically from the sun. Grazing, eating grass in a field. Satiny, smooth and soft. Squirted, came out in a thin, fast stream. Squishy, soft. Scrawny, thin and weak. Churn, shake milk to make butter or cream. Monica's unread books. Get set. Do you like to read books? Books are really fun to read. They are filled with exciting stories about all kinds of people, magic and places. You can find all kinds of books in your school library. Let's read a story about Monica, whose house was full of books. Once there was a girl named Monica. She hated to read and she hated books. "They're always in the way," she said. This was true because in her house, books were everywhere, not just on bookshelves and bedside tables, where books usually are, but in all sorts of places where books usually aren't. There were books in dressers and drawers and desks, in closets and cupboards and chests. There were books on the sofa and books on the stairs, books crammed in the fireplace and stacked on the chairs. Worse still, her parents were always bringing home more books. They read at breakfast and lunch and dinner. "Read a book," they would say to Monica. But she would stamp her foot and shout, "I hate books." And when they tried to read aloud to her, she would put her hands over her ears and shout even louder, "I hate books." Monica's cat, Mintu, hated books too. When he was a little kitten, a thick atlas had fallen on his tail. Since then, he tried to stay on top of books rather than below them. One morning, Monica called Mintu for breakfast, but Mintu didn't come. Where could he be? She wondered. She looked in the bathtub, under the stairs, and on the top of the clock, but she couldn't find Mintu. Suddenly she heard a loud meow. She ran into the dining room, and there he was, stuck on top of the tallest stack of books in the house. It was made up of all the books her parents kept buying her, and she kept refusing to read. At the bottom were big shiny picture books from when she was a baby. In the middle were alphabet books and nursery rhymes. At the top, right by the ceiling, were fairy tales and adventure stories. They were all covered in dust. "Don't worry, Mintu," Monica called out to him. "I'll rescue you." She stood on a stool and stretched forward. Suddenly her foot slipped. She lost her balance and started to slide. Crash! The books went flying. They scattered everywhere in the room. As they fell, strange things began to happen. People and animals started falling out of the pages and tumbling onto the ground. They dropped one on top of the other, scattering the books and toppling the chairs. There were princes and princesses, fairies and frogs and a wolf and 3 parrots. There were elephants, emperors, emus and elves, and an assortment of monkeys and rabbits tangled up in themselves. Monica sat there in the middle of it all, too surprised to move. By now she couldn't recognize the dining room at all. The elephant was balancing on a coffee table, juggling the good china plates. The monkeys had torn down the curtains and were using them as capes, and the rabbits were nibbling on the table legs. "Stop!" cried Monica. "Go back!" But there was so much barking and grunting and thumping going on that no one heard her speak. She grabbed the nearest rabbit and tried to stuff him into a cookbook, but that scared him so much that he wiggled out of Monica's grasp and ran away. She opened another book, and a flock of birds flew out. She slammed it shut again. "This won't work," said Monica. "I don't know who goes in which book." She thought for a minute. Then she picked up the nearest book and began to read. Once upon a time, she read, in a land far, far away. Slowly the creatures crept closer and closer to hear what happened next. Soon they were all sitting in a circle around her. When Monica reached the top of the second page, the emus in the circle jumped up.
"That's us,"
They cried.
That's our page. That's our book. Get in.
They leapt out of the circle and dived into her lap and disappeared into the book. Monica clapped it shut before they could get out again. Then she picked up another book. One by one she began reading all her books. One by one, the creatures found out where they belonged. When her parents came in that afternoon, they couldn't believe their eyes. Not because the curtains were gone and the dishes were broken and the table legs were chewed up, but because there, sitting in the middle of the room, was Monica. She was reading a book. Word meanings. Dresser, a cupboard with shelves on top. Closet, a cupboard for keeping clothes. Crammed, stuffed tightly with things. Stamp, hit loudly on the floor. Rescue, save, tumbling. Falling suddenly in a clumsy way. Toppling, falling by losing balance. Emu, a large bird similar to the ostrich, commonly found in Australia. Cape, a sleeveless cloak or shawl. My grandmother and I. Get set. It is a noble thing to teach someone to read and write. There are so many people who do not know how to read. Imagine how difficult it would be for them to do simple tasks related to reading or writing. Let's read a story about a young girl who teaches her grandmother to read. Perhaps you could do the same noble work for someone you know. My grandmother, Shakuntala, never went to school, and so she could not read. Every Wednesday, the magazine Kalyan would come to our house, and I would read the next episode of Manan Karne Yogya to her. She would listen with the greatest concentration. Later, she could repeat the entire text by heart. After hearing what happened next in the story, she would join her friends at the temple courtyard and discuss the latest episode with them. Once, I went for a wedding with my cousins to the neighboring village. In those days, weddings were a great event. We children enjoyed ourselves thoroughly. We would eat and play endlessly, savoring the freedom because all the elders were busy. I went for a couple of days, but ended up staying there for a week. When I came back to my village, I saw my grandmother in tears. I was surprised, for I had never seen her cry even in the most difficult situations. What had happened? I was very worried. "Nani, is everything all right?" She nodded, but did not reply. I did not understand and soon forgot all about it. At night, after dinner, we were sleeping on the open terrace of the house. It was a summer night, and there was a full moon. Nani came and sat next to me. Her affectionate hands touched my forehead. I realized she wanted to speak. I asked her, "What is the matter?" "When I was a young girl, I lost my mother," said Nani. "There was nobody to look after and guide me. My father was a busy man. In those days, people never considered education essential for girls, so I never went to school. I got married very young and had children. I became very busy. Later, I had grandchildren and always felt so much happiness in cooking and feeding all of you. At times, I used to regret not going to school, so I made sure that my children and grandchildren studied well. I could not understand why my 62-year-old grandmother was telling me, a 12-year-old, the story of her life in the middle of the night. But I knew I loved her immensely, and there had to be some reason why she was talking to me. I looked at her face. It was unhappy, and her eyes were filled with tears. I leaned forward and held her hand. Nani, don't cry. What is the matter? Can I help you in any way? Yes, I need your help. You know, when you were away, the Kalyan came as usual. I opened the magazine. I saw the picture that accompanies the story of Manan Karne Yogya, but I could not understand anything that was written. I could have asked somebody in this village to read for me, but I was too embarrassed to do so. I felt so dependent and helpless. We are well off, but what is the use of this money when I cannot be self-dependent? Now I have decided to learn to read Hindi from tomorrow. Nani, at this age of 62, you want to learn to read. All your hair is grey. Your hands are wrinkled and you work so much in the kitchen. Childishly, I made fun of her, but she just smiled and said, For a good cause, if you are determined, you can overcome any obstacle. I will work harder than anybody, but I will do it. For learning, there is no age bar. The next day onwards, I started my tuition. Nani was a wonderful student. The amount of homework she did was amazing. She would read, repeat, write, and recite. I was her only teacher, and she was my first student. Little did I know then that one day I would become a teacher in computer science and teach hundreds of students over the years. Word meanings, concentration, the action or power of focusing all one's attention. Thoroughly, very much, greatly. Savoring, enjoying it to the full. Affectionate, showing fondness or tenderness. Essential, absolutely necessary. Accompanies, goes somewhere with. Embarrassed, feeling shy or uncomfortable. Determined, having made a firm decision. Obstacle, hurdle or problem. Topsy-turvy land. Get set. Here is a short poem about a funny little place called Topsy-turvy land. In this place, everything is the opposite of what you expect. Would you like to visit a place like this? The people walk upon their heads. The sea is made of sand. The children go to school by night in topsy-turvy land. The front doorstep is at the back. You're walking when you stand. You wear your hat upon your feet in topsy-turvy land. And buses on the sea you'll meet, while pleasure boats are planned to travel up and down the streets of topsy-turvy land. You pay for what you never get. I think it must be grand, for when you go you're coming back in topsy-turvy land. Word meanings, topsy-turvy, upside down, confusing. Pleasure boats, boats that are for having fun like sightseeing and not for business. Grand, magnificent and imposing in appearance, size or style. Mullah scandal, get set. Nasruddin is an old Persian storytelling character. He has been the subject of many witty tales for the education and instruction of the folks of the day. On the surface, most of the Nasruddin stories may be used as jokes, but there is always a moral in his stories. The men of the town sat in the tea house, wrapped in shawls and sweaters, and huddling close to the fire. Only Mullah Nasruddin sat a little apart, admiring the view from the window.
How beautiful is the sunset. Come and take a look,
said Nasruddin to the others, but they would not budge from their places near the fire.
Only you can think of the beauty of nature at a time like this.
If this cold weather continues, we will soon have nothing to eat. Our rations will be over, and we will freeze to death,"
said Samir angrily.
"There is no need to be gloomy,"
Nasruddin replied.
"We are healthy men. If we dress warmly and keep ourselves busy, we will not feel the cold."
"How can you not feel the cold?"
Some of the men grumbled.
"What will happen to us once the food we have stored is over? How are we going to live through this terrible winter?"
"The men are strong and fit, and we have enough food to last us through the winter. If you went out and chopped some wood, you would have enough firewood for days, and the exercise would warm you,"
Mullah said encouragingly.
"I love winter. It is the time for me to put my body and spirit to test."
"We cannot believe you do not feel the cold,"
said Devan, as he crept closer to the fire.
"I see no reason to complain,"
replied Nasruddin.
"Then prove to us that you really do not mind the cold,"
said Samir. The men turned towards Samir, their eyes round with wonder. Was he challenging Mullah Nasruddin?
"What I can do to convince you?"
Nasruddin asked.
"As soon as night falls,"
said Samir,
"you will go outside and stand in the town square. You cannot light a fire, not even a candle. There you shall remain till dawn. If you succeed in spending the night out in the cold, we will all give you something from our rations. If you come inside before the night is over, then you must invite all of us to a grand feast. Do you agree?"
Silence fell over the room. No one could imagine that Nasruddin would agree to spend a night outside in the freezing cold.
"If all of you want to put me through the test, I agree."
Nasruddin smiled. Samir raised his voice and continued.
"That is not all. You will have to stay out all alone in whatever garments you are wearing now. No one can bring you more clothes or blankets. Your wife cannot bring you any food or tea either."
"I agree,"
said Nasruddin.
"I will go out dressed as I am, with only this old blanket that I have wrapped around my shoulders."
As soon as it was dark, the men accompanied Nasruddin outside. They saw him take his place in the middle of the square and hurried home. From the warmth of their homes, they kept their eyes on Mullah. Nasruddin had faced many hardships in his life. He had travelled over snow-covered mountains and slept in the open on mountain sides where icy winds howled all around him. Spending the night in the town square with buildings all around to protect him from the wind was easy in comparison. Of course, he had to find ways to keep himself warm. He started running round the square and jumping about. He did push-ups and sit-ups. For a change, he turned cartwheels and did somersaults. He kept the blood pumping through his veins. Finally, the first rays of the sun appeared over the horizon. Triumphant, the mullah walked back to the tea house.
"Now, you believe me that I can withstand the cold better than the rest of you?"
Nasruddin told the men when they gathered around him.
"We only believe you are a good clown and an acrobat,"
exclaimed Devan.
"Besides, you have proved nothing,"
said Samir slyly. Nasruddin looked at the men in disbelief.
"How have I failed the test?"
he asked.
"We noticed that while running around the square, you always stopped in front of a house where a candle was burning at the window. That is how you kept yourself warm,"
said Samir. Nasruddin could not believe his ears.
"The nearest house is at least 50 feet from the square. That candle at the window was further away. It was barely strong enough to light up the room in which it was burning. How could it have warmed one from so far?"
We agree with Sameer.
The other men insisted.
You must accept that you have lost the challenge.
Nasruddin looked thoughtful, then said,
In that case, I'll be happy to welcome you to my house for a meal as we had agreed.
That evening, the men turned up at Nasruddin's house for the feast, pleased with themselves at having proved the mullah wrong. They were in high spirits, laughing and joking, when after 3 hours the food had not been served. They started to get impatient. Sameer went into the kitchen to look for mullah.
When will the food be served?
He asked Nasruddin.
We have been waiting for a long time.
It's being cooked,
said Nasruddin. Sameer looked at a huge pot full of rice, meat and vegetables. But there was no steam coming out of it. He went closer and touched it.
This pot is not even warm yet.
He shouted. He bent down to check the fire in the cooking pit. What he saw was one lone candle burning underneath.
How is that one candle going to cook the food in this enormous pot?
He yelled angrily at Nasruddin. Nasruddin smiled and replied calmly,
the same way that the candle at the window 100 feet away warmed me last night.
Word meanings: huddling, crowding together, sitting closely together. Apart, away from each other at a distance. Budge, move a small amount. Rations, amount of food. Grumbled, complained about something in a bad-tempered way. Spirit, the soul of a person. Hardships, difficulties. Cartwheel, a circular movement in which you turn completely over by throwing your body sideways onto your hands while bringing your legs over your head. Somersault, an acrobatic movement in which a person turns head over heels. Triumphant, having won a battle or contest. Victorious, withstand, resist. Feast, a grand meal eaten by many people together. The little things. Get set. Do you understand the importance of the environment? Our environment is made up of the entire planet that we live on. It includes the air we breathe and the water we drink. It is very important to take care of the environment if we want to live a long and healthy life. Let's read a story that will inspire you to take care of our planet in your own way. Sakshi and her brother Rohan walked home dejectedly. This was unusual because they usually walked home exchanging lively notes on the lessons they had learnt at school each day. But now they walked quietly, side by side, not saying anything. When a lady walked by with her dog, Sakshi did not stop to pet it as she would have otherwise done. When they passed the ice candy man, Rohan did not run to him, even though he had the money he earned from washing his father's scooter. Their bags seemed heavier today. The road to home seemed longer. When they got home, their parents were in the kitchen. They had made pav bhaji and pakoras for lunch. Even this did not excite Sakshi and Rohan. "What is the matter?" asked their mother. "Have you two been quarrelling?"
No, Mom,
said Rohan.
Did you have a difficult day at school? Is there anything I can do to help?
asked their father. "No, Papa," replied Sakshi. "Unfortunately, there is nothing you can do to help."
that's just it.
Piped in Rohan.
Something very wrong has happened, and there is nothing we can do about it.
"Why don't you tell us about it?" said Mother. "Today we had a science club meeting to discuss the environmental problems," said Sakshi. "And we learnt that people are polluting our environment and destroying our beautiful planet. Our teacher asked us to think of something each of us could do to protect the planet. Though we've thought and thought, It seems like too much damage is being done, and nothing we do will ever make any difference." Their mother sat quietly for a minute, thinking. "I am glad to see that you are both concerned about our environment," she said. "And I understand how helpless you must feel when you think about all the damage that has been done. So let me tell you a story that your grandfather once told me. I don't know where he heard it, but I think that it might help you think about your problem in a different way. One morning, a man was walking down a beach. The beach was covered with dying starfish. The previous night, the tide had been especially strong, so thousands of starfish had been washed up on the shore. The fish were washed up too far up for them to make it back into the water by themselves. The man shook his head as he trudged along, thinking what a shame it was that all of those starfish would die on the beach. He came upon a boy who was throwing starfish back into the sea as fast as he could. The boy was out of breath, and it was obvious that he had been at this task for a while.
"Son,"
the man said,
"you might as well quit. There are thousands of them. They are washed up all over the beach as far as you can see. There is no way you can make any sort of difference."
The boy did not even pause in what he was doing. He kept bending and throwing, but as he did, he spoke to the man.
"I can make a difference to this one, and this one, and this one."
And the man thought about what the boy said, and he knew the boy was right. He began to help the animals return to their home, smiling at how life's biggest lessons sometimes came from the smallest people. Sakshi and Rohan listened with rapt attention. "The boy did make a difference, didn't he?" asked Sakshi excitedly. Their mother nodded. "So what it means is that even though we can't change everything, we can each make a big difference by doing little things that matter."
"I suddenly feel hungry for pav bhaji and pakoras,"
declared Rohan, smiling broadly. Word meanings: dejectedly, disappointed and sad, lively, excited, full of energy, quarreling, fighting, polluting, harming with poisonous things, concerned, worried, troubled or anxious, damage, harm, injure. Starfish, a creature found in the sea with 5 arms like a star. Trudged, walked slowly and with heavy steps. Rapt, completely fascinated or absorbed. Dr. Dolittle goes home. Get set! In the following story, Dr. John Dolittle, MD, is an English doctor who became a doctor for animals after his parrot, Polynesia, taught him to speak animal languages. He lives in the fictional town of Puddleby on the marsh in England's West Country, along with his many animal friends. He has very few human friends and spends most of his time treating animals, traveling the world with his animals, and conducting research into new animals and new forms of animal languages. Look for more stories about him in your school library. Pushmi Pulias are now extinct, but long ago when Dr. Dolittle was alive, there were some of them still left in the deepest jungles of Africa. They had no tail, but a head at each end and sharp horns on each head. They were very shy and terribly hard to catch, because no matter which way you came towards him, he was always facing you, and besides, only one half of him slept at a time. The other head was always awake and watching. This was why they were never caught and never seen in zoos. The monkeys set out searching for this animal through the forest. After they had gone a good many miles, one of them found peculiar footprints near the edge of a river, and they knew that a Pushmi Pulyu, Must be very near that spot. Then they went along the bank of the river a little way, and they saw a place where the grass was high and thick, and they guessed that he was in there. So they all joined hands and made a great circle round the high grass. The push-me-pulley-you heard them coming, and he tried hard to break through the ring of monkeys, but he couldn't do so. When he saw that it was no use trying to escape, he sat down and waited to see what they wanted. They asked him if he would go with Dr. Dolittle and be put on show, but he shook both his heads and said,
"Certainly not."
They told him that the doctor was a very kind man, but didn't have any money, and people would pay to see a two-headed animal. The doctor would get rich and could pay for the boat he had borrowed to come to Africa. For 3 days they tried to persuade him. At the end of the 3rd day he said he would come with them and first see what kind of a man the doctor was. So the monkeys travelled back with the push-me-pull-you, and when they came to where the doctor's little house of grass was, they knocked on the door. The duck, who was packing the trunk, said, "Come in." And Chi-Chi very proudly took the animal inside and showed him to the doctor.
"What in the world is it?"
asked John Dolittle, gazing at the strange creature. "This, doctor," said Chi-Chi, "is the push-me-pull-you, the rarest animal of the African jungles. The only two-headed beast in the world. Take him home with you and your fortune's made. People will pay any money to see him."
"But I don't want any money,"
said the doctor. "Yes, you do," said Dab-Dab the duck. "How are you going to get the sailor the new boat you spoke of, unless you have the money to buy it?"
"Well, perhaps there is something in what you say,"
murmured the doctor.
"It certainly would make a nice new kind of pet. But does what do you call it, really want to go abroad?"
"Yes, I'll go,"
said the push-me-pull-you, who saw at once from the doctor's face that he was a man to be trusted.
"You have been so kind to the animals here, and the monkeys told me that I am the only one who will do. But you must promise me that if I do not like it, you will send me back."
"Why, certainly, of course,"
said the doctor.
"Excuse me, surely you are related to the deer family, aren't you?"
"Yes."
said the push-me-pull-you.
"To the Abyssinian gazelles and the Asiatic chamois, on my mother's side. My father's great-grandfather was the last of the unicorns."
"Most interesting,"
murmured the doctor. And he took a book out of the trunk which Dab-Dab was packing and began turning the pages.
"Let us see if Buffon says anything."
"I notice," said the duck, "although you have 2 mouths, you talk with only one. Can't the other head talk as well?"
"Oh yes,"
said the push-me-pull-you.
"but I keep the other mouth for eating mostly. In that way, I can talk while I'm eating without being rude."
When the packing was finished and everything was ready, the monkeys gave a grand party for the doctor, and all the animals of the jungle came. And they had pineapples and mangoes and honey and all sorts of good things to eat and drink. After they had all finished eating, the doctor got up and said,
"I wish to tell you that I am very sad at leaving your beautiful country, but I must go. After I have gone, remember never to let the flies settle on your food before you eat it, and do not sleep on the ground in rainy days. I hope all of you will live happily ever after."
When the doctor stopped speaking, all the monkeys clapped their hands and said to one another,
"Let it be remembered always among our people that he sat and ate with us here under the trees, for surely he is the greatest of men."
Then, when the party was over, the doctor and his pets started out to go back to the seashore, and all the monkeys went with him, carrying his trunk and bags to see him off. Word meanings: extinct, no longer existing, peculiar, strange, odd. Persuade, convince someone of something. Murmured, spoke softly in low sound. Abroad, foreign country or land. Storm, get set. Do you enjoy watching the rains? Rains can sometimes be accompanied with thunder and lightning. These are called thunderstorms, and they can be very loud. Do you feel afraid during a thunderstorm, or do you enjoy it? Let's read a poem about the wind and rain fighting with each other. They're at it again, the wind and the rain. It all started when the wind took the window by the collar and shook it with all its might. Then the rain butted in. What a din! They'll be at it all night. Serves them right. If they go home in the morning, and the sky won't let them in. Word meanings: butted in, interfered in someone else's activities. Din, a loud, unpleasant and prolonged noise. The Shehzadi's throne. Get set. Do you have a brother or sister? Sometimes we feel that our siblings are luckier than us, or that they get all the attention. Let's read a story about Kanika, who thinks that her sister is always treated like a Shehzadi, princess. My elder sister is 10 years old. Her name is Manika, but everyone calls her Minnie. Everyone except me. I, Kanika, call her Shehzadi. It's the perfect name for her. All day long, she just sits on her throne with wheels and tells everybody in the whole world what to do. When we go for shopping at the mall, the Shehzadi rides on her throne while Papa wheels her around along the aisle, and I carry the packages. Sometimes there are so many. I look like a moving box with legs. My school is so far from my house. I have to ride for hours on a school bus to get there. The Shehzadi goes to the new school right across the street. She can wheel herself there in 1 second. She does not even have to wear a uniform. It is summer now. All my friends have gone to hill stations. Everyone except me. Mummy says there's no money to go for a holiday because the Shehzadi got new braces for her legs. After dinner, I go outside. The Shehzadi is in the hammock, asleep. Beside the tree is the throne. Seeing it empty gives me the best idea. Today I will be the Shehzadi. I sit on the throne. Now I will spend every minute on the throne, I say. I decide to ride to the Shehzadi's school. There is a nice, steep little hill on the grass near the sidewalk. Maybe it would be fun to ride down it. I sit down and give the throne a good hard push. Plop! The throne dumps me out on the sidewalk and lands upside down on top of me. My knee has a tiny cut on it. I'm glad no one is around to laugh. I wonder if the Shehzadi ever fell when she was learning to ride the throne. I put the throne right side up and get back on it. Then I ride to the corner of the street. I've been pushing so hard, I feel like both my arms are broken. Some grown-ups are walking towards me. They look at me and my throne, and then they turn away fast, like I do when I'm watching a scary movie. Does this happen to the Shehzadi? Some boys are playing on the sidewalk and will not move out of my way.
Why don't you go over me? Wheel legs,
says one of them. All his friends laugh. I'll beat you up, I yell, but they just laugh some more and run away. The worst thing in the world has happened. Great big raindrops have started falling over everything. The rain comes faster and faster. I think about running home too, but I can't leave the throne out in the rain. The wheels of the throne sink down, down, down in the mud. By the time I pull the throne out, I am wetter and colder than I have ever been in my whole life. The rain stops. I wheel myself home. I notice Papa standing in our front yard. He is calling and calling, but the cars and trucks are so noisy. I can't hear him. Mummy is walking up the street, looking around anxiously. I drag the muddy throne across the rest of the field to the sidewalk. When Mummy sees me, she runs and holds out her arms. Papa is right behind her. I didn't mean to mess up the throne. I'm sorry, I say. Throne, says Mother. Oh, the wheelchair. We thought you were lost. You weren't looking for the chair, I say. Kanika, we were looking for you. Mummy hugs me some more. You shouldn't have taken Minnie's wheelchair. But we're so glad you're back. Mummy washes me in the bathtub and puts me to bed, just like she does for Minnie. After Papa and Mummy say good night and turn out the lights, I lie there thinking, Minnie, I whisper, are you awake? Uh-huh. How can you smile all the time when you're in that yucky chair? It's not yucky, says Minnie. It takes me places. I'm sorry, I took your chair, I say. That's all right. Just go to sleep now. But I'm wide awake. I lie there and wish very hard that my sister will always be able to do things that make her happy. Word meanings. Throne, the chair where the king or queen sits. Aisle, long corridor or passage between two rows of chairs, shelves, etc. Hammock, a large swing made by tying a piece of fabric or net from ropes. Sidewalk, pavement, anxiously, worriedly. Manu waits for rain. Get set. The farmers in India depend on the monsoon for water for their crops. This affects all of us because if there is less rain, there will be less food for all of us to eat. Let's read a story about Manu, a farmer, who is worried that there will be no rain for his crops this time.
I hope it rains at least today,
Manu thought as he opened his eyes. Manu was a farmer. The sun was beginning to rise, glowing crimson like fire. Manu looked at the sky. There was not a cloud.
It don't look like there is going to be rain,
He muttered to himself and got up. Rain or no rain, a farmer wakes up early. Manu worked hard on his piece of land. Season after season, he cultivated it, harvesting jowar one season and dal the next. Throughout the year he worked, never thinking of rest or taking a holiday. It had been the same for 6 years, ever since he had got his own piece of land. But this year was different. At the end of summer, the rains did not come. Manu and his neighbors waited, but their waiting did not end. Days, weeks, and months passed, and still there was no rain. The fields were brown. The soil hardened, crusted, and cracked. Every day the farmers hoped that the rains would come. Someone said,
We ought to sacrifice an animal, a goat. That will please the heavens, and the heavens will send down rain.
Manu did not agree. He said,
The rain came all these years without any such sacrifice. How will killing a goat bring rain?
He decided to go to the weather office in the city and talk to someone. But the people at the weather office could not really tell him when the rains would come.
We are not sure ourselves,
They exclaimed.
It's strange that the rain is still not here.
Manu walked back to the village, tired, thirsty and unhappy. He decided to rest for a while. He saw a large tree. Its shade was cool and inviting. As he sat down, he noticed that an old woman was also sitting there, sheltering from the sun. She was old, but her eyes were bright when she smiled. She looked at Manu, and her smile grew wider.
What are you smiling at, Amma?
Manu asked.
Without the rains, there's nothing to smile about.
Yes, yes. You're right, the old woman said. She stopped smiling.
I wonder why this is happening.
Manu began.
I have worked hard and honestly, yet I am being punished. Without the rains, no crop will grow. What will happen to me? How shall I feed my family?
He asked sadly. He was not speaking to anyone in particular, but the old woman thought that he was speaking to her. Perhaps you have worked too hard, she said.
What do you mean? I have only done what any hard-working farmer would do. I shall work and never rest until I am too old. This is the first season in 6 years that I have not sown nor plowed. It is hard not to be able to work,
said Manu a little angrily. But my son, that is what I am talking about. You have strength now. You can work without a break. But have you thought about the land? The earth works too when you plow and sow and plant. The earth has worked for years, in fact, thousands of years. The soil, the land, the earth. Shouldn't someone let the land rest a bit? The old woman said, softly smiling.
Rest? Let the land rest? I don't understand.
Manu looked at her a little puzzled. Yes, my son, that is the problem. You don't realize that the earth is old. But nature is a mother to all of us, to you and to me, to the trees, the water and the soil too. She takes care to give her children the rest they need. The old lady said. Manu began to understand. When the rains don't come, you are unhappy. But that way the land is left alone. The land lies resting, staring at the sky. And when the rains come, it will be fresh and ready for your crop. Go home, my son. Nature knows a thing or two. Go home, she said, and got up. She walked away. After a while, Manu too got up and walked home. He thought about the land, his beloved piece of land. If the old woman was right, his land was perhaps resting peacefully, taking a break after years of cultivation.
Perhaps she is right,
he thought, as he approached the village. It was already evening. The sun was low in the sky, and what was that? Manu felt tiny drops on his shoulder. He looked up. Yes, the clouds were gathering in the distance. It was growing dark. Soon there would be lightning and thunder, and sweet, fragrant rain. Manu ran home, laughing and happy. Word meanings: crimson, a deep shade of red. Jowar, a type of grain used to make bread, also known as sorghum. Crusted, covered with a hard surface layer. Ploughed, turned up the earth before sowing. Puzzled, confused. Cultivation, the action of farming, growing crops. Fragrant, having a pleasant or sweet smell. How the little kite learnt to fly. Get set. What is your state of mind when you try to do any work for the first time? How do you feel? Let's read the poem where a little kite fears to fly and see what happens in the end.
I never can do it.
The little kite said, as he looked at the others high over his head.
I know. I should fall if I try to fly.
Try,
said the big kite.
only try, or I fear you never will learn at all.
But the little kite said,
I'm afraid I'll fall.
The big kite nodded.
Oh, well, goodbye, I'm off.
And he rose toward the tranquil sky. Then the little kite's paper stirred at the sight, and trembling he shook himself free for flight. First whirling and frightened, then braver grown. Up, up he rose, through the air alone, till the big kite looked down could see the little one rising steadily. Then how the little kite thrilled with pride as he sailed with the big kite side by side, while far below he could see the ground and the boys like small spots moving round. They rested high in the quiet air, and only the birds and clouds were there.
Oh, how happy I am!
The little kite cried.
And all because I was brave and tried.
Word meanings: tranquil, peaceful, calm, stirred, moved slightly, a small movement, trembling, shaking, whirling, moving in a round and round motion, thrilled, felt excited. Troll under the bridge. Get set. Do you know what goats like to eat? They love eating fresh green grass. Let us read about 3 goats who need to cross a bridge to reach their food. Characters: 3 goats, brothers, big billy goat, little billy goat, middle billy goat, troll, a giant.
We are very hungry. We have eaten all the grass on our side of the hill.
On the other side of the hill, across the rickety-rackety bridge, there is lots and lots of grass to eat.
We should go to the other side of the hill. What about that big, ugly troll that lives under the rickety-rackety bridge? He will not let us cross his bridge to the other side. Oh, the troll's appetite is huge, and he loves,
with a shiver,
goat meat. He can eat us all. He is a selfish troll. We must cross the bridge and go to his side of the hill. There is no more grass on ours, and I am very, very hungry.
Maybe he is gone. Maybe he is visiting his mother.
Yes, I can't see him. I am sure he is visiting his mother.
Let's go across the troll's bridge.
Yes, let's go.
The troll's mother lives far away. He will not come back for a long while. You go first, little Billy Goat.
Why should I go first?
You are so skinny and scrawny. You need to eat some fresh, juicy grass right away.
All right, I'll go first, and when I get that tall, sweet, green grass, I will be thinking of you as I eat and eat.
The little goat begins to cross the bridge. He is almost at the other side when the troll jumps up.
Who goes trip-trapping across my bridge?
It is I, the tiniest Billy Goat Gruff. May I cross the bridge?
No, it's mine. You cannot cross it. I shall eat you.
No, don't eat me. I am quite skinny and scrawny. I really do not taste good at all. Please, wait for my brother. He is bigger. He is tasty and juicy. He will be coming in just a minute. Please wait for him.
Looks little goat over.
You are right. You may go.
Thank you.
Runs across the bridge. Soon the middle billy goat decided he should go across the bridge.
I had better get over there before any little brother eats all the sweet grass.
Starts across the bridge. The troll appears suddenly. He is very angry.
Who goes trip-trapping across my bridge?
Shaking.
It is I, the middle billy goat.
I have been waiting for you. I'm going to eat you.
Oh, don't eat me. I'm just the middle billy goat. Wait for my brother. He's big. He's much, much bigger than I am. He's the biggest goat you can find. Wait for my huge, juicy brother, please.
Then I shall wait for him. I want the best. You may go.
Well, look at that. Both my brothers are having a great time eating grass over there. The silly troll must be visiting his mother after all. I think I will trot along and join them.
Who goes trip-trapping across my bridge?
In a loud voice.
It is I, the big billy goat. I have been waiting for you. I shall eat you for lunch.
Oh, I don't think so.
Lowers his head. 1, 2, 3. He charges at the troll. The troll runs away.
Oops! I'm quite full. I don't think I will eat a goat after all.
The big billy goat hits him and sends him flying off the stage.
Now it's time for me to join my family and have some lunch. This grass is very sweet.
The 3 billy goats unite and enjoy the green grass together. Word meanings: rickety, weak, likely to collapse. Troll, an ugly giant creature. Appetite, strong desire for something. Scrawny, thin and bony. Trot, run at a slow pace with short steps. Charges, here, move towards someone at a fast pace.